So, My Hero Academia manga chapter 314 has officially released on Shonen Jump, and let me just say that in this video, we're going to be discussing a little bit more on that chapter and how it basically confirms that Hero Society has collapsed and a new one is probably going to take its place. But the real question is it going to be the same one or one that's completely different? That's what we're going to talk about in this video after the intro. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Big Blue Drew 97 here, coming at you with another discussion video about My Hero Academia. This time we're going to be talking about what we learned in manga chapter 314 when it comes to Lady Nagant and her backstory and her connection with the Public Hero Commission, and how Hero Society that we thought we knew was actually not what we expected and was actually a lot more fragile than we could have ever known. So we're going to get a little bit more talking about that in the chapter, as well as talking about a little bit of differences between the official and unofficial translations. But before we do that, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't done so, to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you'd like to see more content about My Hero Academia, me discussing the chapters, and if there's anything else that you would like for me to do, I'll leave them down in the comments down below and maybe I'll take them into consideration. But right now we're going to go right into the differences between the official and unofficial translations of My Hero Academia manga chapter 314. So, for starters, probably the first difference that you'll notice between the two chapters is the title of the chapter, because officially the title of 314 of My Hero Academia is titled The Lovely Lady Nagant, while in the unofficial, it's The Beautiful Lady Nagant. And me personally, I like the alliteration, Lovely Lady Nagant. Also, just in case you didn't know, Lady Nagant is her actual name. Her first name is Lady, and her last name is Nagant. Just to let you know if you were a little bit confused, because they do have some little children calling out for her as Lady, not as in, oh, hey lady, but more of like Lady is her first name, or at least that's how I'm viewing. Now, with that little tangent outside, let's go right into the actual differences between unofficial and official, and it goes to pretty much the beginning of the chapter when it comes to the conversation or the mental thoughts that are going on in both Deku and Lady Nagant's head, because in the unofficial translations, it seems as if Deku is unable to like use smokescreen in the rain, and how he thought about the situation with Lady Nagant. He wasn't really sure if she could get the decoys in the smoke screen. That is what seems to be portrayed in the unofficial translations. But in the official translations, we get more confirmation that Deku knew that when it comes to smoke screen, that it doesn't really spread well in the smoke, but that was actually for the benefit, because it means that it allowed Lady Nagant to be able to shoot the decoys effectively, which would have given him enough time to actually capture her, which is very interesting. And what she thinks is pretty much the same between the unofficial and official, about how he is faster than she thought, and that she didn't know that he wasn't hiding in the smoke. So yeah, that's a small difference between the unofficial and official translations. But something major that I actually want to bring up between the unofficial and official translations comes in when Deku and Lady Nagant are talking. This is after Lady Nagant knocks Deku off, and this is right before she shoots the radio bullet at him, where Deku is thinking about how he's unable to use parallel quirk processes, which shows that in this chapter, even though he's capable of using the third user's quirk, he's still not able to use it effectively alongside his other quirks, showing that he still needs to not necessarily learn how to use the quirk, but learn how to use the quirk along with the other quirks that he has, which is very interesting because it shows that he doesn't necessarily need to train the quirks, but he needs to train how he can use and apply the quirks. But that's not the difference that I want to bring up. The difference that I want to bring up is how both in the unofficial and official translations, basically how Lady Nagant describes how Deku views Hero Society, where you have in the unofficial translations where she basically says that when it comes to the Hero Society, that he is blinded and that he doesn't understand because he's blinded, and Deku questions, blindly, but in the actual official translation, she basically says that what the people view as hero society, what they view as the truth, it's tinged. And Deku also says tinged. And I think this is something that we should bring up, because there's a difference between blindly looking at hero society, blindly looking at something, and having something being tinged or having like a sort of cover on it. And I think the main difference is, like, if you're blind, that means you're completely ignorant to what's going on and that you're unable to see it. But if it's tinged, it means that you're able to see everything that's in front of you, but that you cannot see it clearly. And I think that's a very important distinction, because if the people were truly like blind to everything that was happening, then when All Might revealed himself to not be as powerful as he was, that he had a weaker form, I think that would have been the moment hero society should have crumbled, if people were blind to hero society. But the fact that they bring up the idea that it's tinged, even when something horrible happens, they can write it off as like, oh, well, it's bad, but it's not that big of a deal, even if it is a huge deal, because they've always been not necessarily blinded by everything, because they know that bad things happen in the world, but that it's somewhat blurred, because they can somewhat see it and they can still accept it even though they don't see it clearly, where if it was completely blind, if they were completely blind, then they wouldn't have been able to accept it at all. So I think the major difference between being blind and being tinged is specifically related to how the characters would react to the fact that hero society has broken down. And if they were blinded, then hero society would have crumbled sooner and harder than if hero society was tinged. So that's what I wanted to bring up when it comes to this difference in translation. So another difference in translation comes from when Lady Nagant is listing out things that she had to quote unquote do as a hero under the Hero Safety Commission, where in the unofficial translations it specifically states that these are the things that she did, that she stopped the terrorist attacks on heroes, that she stopped hero teams that associated themselves with villain organizations, and how these people are able to shake the foundation, how she was the one that specifically made the people disappear, the people that were the terrorists and the people that were associated, specifically the heroes that were associated with the villain organization. That's what it's portrayed for the unofficial translations. But for the official translations, it's more of a hypothetical. She gives like, what if there was a hypothetical terrorist attack against the heroes? And what if there was a hypothetical heroes working with the villains? And with these type of hypotheticals, when you have people like that who are capable of shaking society, wouldn't you think that law and order wouldn't cut it, and that they would have to disappear along with the crimes? And that how she gives that these are the classified missions that were given to her. And this is very interesting because it doesn't mean that she necessarily stopped terrorist attacks from happening or stopped heroes working with villain organizations, but it's highly implied. And I kind of like how it's stated in the official translations, because it gives a little bit more of like gray area and ambiguity with what she actually did. We know she did some bad things, but it doesn't specifically say, oh, she stopped terrorists, or she stopped heroes working with villains. She didn't necessarily do that. Those are just hypothetical situations and hypothetical missions that she went on. And this is very important because this actually ties into another difference between the official and unofficial translations when it comes specifically to the dialogue between this one individual who's begging for their life from Lady Nagant before she inevitably kills them. And the main difference is this. In the unofficial translations, this person's basically saying like, hey, we haven't done anything yet, we were only planning. But with the official translations, what he's saying is, hey, wait, we haven't done anything yet, we've only started talking about it. And this is something that's very different and very important when it comes to the differences between the translations and the differences between interpreting how Lady Nagant and how the Hero Commission is like dealing with these threats. Because in the unofficial translations, it's basically saying like, oh yeah, they were in the bad, they were already setting up this specific attack, they were already setting up to do something horrible, and that's why it was justified in killing them. But in the official translations, that is even more ambiguous, because he only said that they were talking about it. They weren't necessarily planning, they didn't have any plans in place, they were just talking about it, meaning that from what we see, Lady Nagant did a lot more ambiguous stuff that could have been good and could have been bad, which means that it's more impactful for her to begin questioning whether or not what she's doing is good and bad because of the ambiguity of the situation, in comparison to the unofficial translations where they are specifically stating, oh, she stopped terrorist attacks, oh, she stopped this, oh, she stopped that. So basically, and something else that is talked about by Deku in this story, when it comes to everything that the world and Hero Society was, when it comes to Lady Nagant views it in more black and white, but when it comes to the actual how it's translated in the official translations, it shows that what she was doing, she was more within the gray area as she was looking at things being more black and white, while in the unofficial translations, she was like specifically going on the side of this is black and this is white, which I think is probably more impactful that the situation was more ambiguous, because even though the situations that she was in the unofficial translations go directly with her idea that the world is more black and white based off her experiences, it's more impactful to the readers seeing that even though she viewed the world as black and white, that the situations were actually more gray, shows like a little bit more complexity to it. It's not that she was right. What she was doing could have possibly been wrong, and that shows that the Hero Commission may not have been in the actual right in that situation, and that even though they were seeing it as black and white, it's still that gray area, while in the other official translations, sort of kind of what the what the Hero Commission actually did is that they actually stopped actual terrorist attacks from actually coming into play. So yeah, I think it still adds that more like gray area that Deku has brought up in this chapter, and you see a lot more of that in the official translations than in the unofficial. And something else that I didn't notice when I was reading the unofficial translations in comparison to the official translations is that when it comes to this panel of Lady Nagant when she's younger, when she's giving this monologue about how vigilantes played a role in the creation of heroes and the creation of this society by these vigilantes putting trust in the people, and how eventually that became the foundation of the superpowered society, we get to see a few familiar shadowed faces in the background when she brings up the vigilantes. One of them is actually possibly Crimson Riot, which is very interesting because Crimson Riot was an inspiration for Red Riot, aka Kirishima. But another person that we see is even more interesting is the number 9 hero, Yoroi Musha. And it's very interesting to see him in this panel, because this could imply that before he was a pro hero, because we know that he's been doing this hero game for a long time, that this highly implies that at first he was a vigilante, which, you know, would make sense for like how long he's been a hero. So he could have been like one of like the first individuals that were vigilantes that became official heroes. So that's something that I really wanted to bring up in this one panel that I didn't notice in the actual review. And then we get to another difference when it comes to the unofficial versus official chapter of My Hero Academia, Manga chapter 314. And this one isn't necessarily a big one, but it could give a little bit more shading to the character of Lady Nagant, because we have the page where we basically get to see the former president of the Public Hero Commission. And we see that as he's talking to her, this is pretty much the same how he talks to Lady Nagant. Lady Nagant basically questions like whether she's doing is right, and how he says that it's necessary, and she begins to question more, and how he says you understand what happens when it comes to the job, you understand what that means. That's pretty much the same between both translations, but the main difference would be how she responds, because in the unofficial translations she responds with I respect you, but in the official translations it's you're a strong one. And this is a very slight difference, because in the unofficial translations, it shows that this is something that she necessarily didn't want to do, but she had to do it. That's why she says she respected you. But with the official translations, by she saying that you're a strong one, it doesn't show any type of like it's like I said, it's really like a gray area. When it comes to the unofficial, where she says that I respect you, it seems to imply that this is something that she had to do. But in the official translation, it's more gray. It doesn't show that she had to do it. As far as we know, she may have killed the president and he wasn't going to threaten to kill her, but she just struck first. And one seems to be more like intent, while the other one seems to be more self-defense. The respect being more self-defense, while with you're a strong one, maybe more like purposeful. Yeah, it gives like a little bit more like different understanding of the situation just by that single different translation coming from Lady Nagant, at least from my perspective. So the final difference between the unofficial and official translations is the one thing that isn't really that big, not necessarily that big of a difference between unofficial and official translations, but it's the point that I really want to dedicate the rest of this video to. And it's on the page where Deku begins to come to the realization that Lady Nagant was responsible for killing the president at that time of the Hero Safety Commission, and how the news said that she killed a fellow hero when she actually killed someone within the Hero Commission agency, which makes sense because they would want to cover that up. They wouldn't want the public to know that someone within the Hero Safety Commission was killed by a hero, as well as how there were internal disputes within it. And I would say that the official translation probably trains that a little bit clearer, and how once again it's the difference between Deku being, as well as everyone else, being blinded to everything that's going on, and how everyone has tinted like sight about it. How she brings up the example of rose-colored glasses, but they both basically come to the same conclusion that this superpowered hero society is very fragile, it's very thin, it's just an illusion. But the main difference that they bring up is that in the unofficial translations, she says, "What do you think will happen if we regain it?" While in the official translations, she says, "Say you bring back the status quo, then what?" And the actual difference between these two phrases are very like insignificant, but the implications that both of these questions imply shows us the real scope of hero society and the true state of hero society at this moment in time, which is that it is non-existent. And to explain why, I have a little video that I'm gonna put somewhere here that basically explains like what my idea of like what the Paranormal Liberation War arc, what the ending of that arc basically represents. And what we get in this chapter is basically more confirmation of the idea that I had, which is basically the idea, especially when it ties into the official translation, that there is going to be a change in the status quo, that after the Paranormal Liberation War front, there's going to be a change in the status quo. And the change in the status quo that we have seen so far is that hero society has crumbled. And you may be questioning, well, if hero society has crumbled, why isn't everyone in chaos? How is there still some type of order in the world if hero society is in chaos? And a good reason why, even though it's still chaotic, but not to the point where society has completely crumbled, that's because society itself hasn't crumbled, but hero society has. Because when it comes to what kept up hero society, it was the trust and the faith that the people had in the heroes. That is what kept hero society stable. That is what kept hero society afloat. That is what kept hero society together. But after the Paranormal Liberation War arc, after the heroes failed to capture all of the villains at the time, they failed to capture Shigaraki, they failed to stop Gigantomachia from causing all of the damage, and they lost trust in Endeavor when they learned that he was a child, wife, family abuser. People begin to stop trusting in heroes. And it doesn't help that also during this time, heroes such as the number 9 hero that I brought up, that we see in this chapter, also retired because he couldn't handle the duties of being a hero at all, as well as like many other heroes deciding to fall down. So basically, when people started to lose trust in the hero society, that is when hero society truly crumbled, and everything associated with hero society began to go down the drain as well. Because when you have this society that is driven by heroes, if you don't have heroes, then who's going to stop the people that are causing crime? Sure, the civilians can do it, but they don't know how to handle villains. And as we've seen in a few chapters, due to the fact that civilians don't necessarily know how to handle villains, they do more harm to the actual environment than the heroes would have done. And that we see that even when it comes to civilians, they are blaming the heroes for everything that has happened, and by them losing faith in the heroes, they decided that they think they can do better and that they can take on the villains by themselves. And through this also brought about how, even though they were able to have press conferences at this time, there are multiple city blocks, multiple cities most likely in Japan that are completely abandoned except for a few swaths of people that decide to stay behind to protect their homes. Everyone else has basically been brought to a hero school as a refuge for them. For the most part, when hero society crumbled, the entirety of Hero Society basically went into a state of a natural disaster situation where people started to react and started to enact plans as if what was going on was a natural disaster. But the main difference is natural disasters normally have an end. What is happening right now is something that can continue onward into the future and will continue onward into the future unless something is done to stop it, like by the heroes, by Deku, by Endeavor, which would involve either capturing all the heroes as well as stopping All for One in Shigaraki. And with this idea in mind, and the fact that Hero Society has crumbled, you have to ask the question, similar to what Lady Nagant asked, then what? What's going to happen next? Now that Hero Society has fallen, what's going to happen next? And I think that what's going to happen next is basically something that Deku brings up in this chapter. How Deku is understanding how the world is in this mixture of gray and how he's going to be the one to extend the hand. And I think that with that idea in mind, what I'm predicting is going to be happening is that the Hero Society that we've known throughout the entire story is gone. It's not coming back, but it's going to be replaced with a new type of society. Not necessarily a superpower society, not necessarily a superhero society, but a society that is going to be driven by people with quirks who are trying to save the day, trying to stop people from doing harm, while also lending a helping hand to people that begin to fall through the cracks of society. That is what a new society surrounded by superpowers is going to be built up to be. And with that in mind, it isn't going to be built on the single back of one individual. As we've seen within the story, the people have had their faith and trust placed upon one hero instead of having it placed upon the entirety of the Hero Society. That is the reason why the Hero Commission had to go behind the scenes to do it, because of the fact that the people didn't have trust, didn't have faith in the whole Hero Society as a whole, but they only had it in one person. And to continue keeping that faith in the one person, they had to limit how many different crimes that one person could solve, how many incidents that could occur. But I think that what's going to be happening next is that we're going to be having a society where there are going to be heroes that are strictly there to help and protect and save the people, and not doing it necessarily for a paycheck. They're doing it because they want to help the people. They're doing it because they want to protect the people, and they're going to do it in a way that is not going to have it be over-reliant on a single hero, a single pillar of peace. It is going to be distributed among all heroes to the point where even if one hero falls, people will not lose hope, because they will know that there is still going to be a hero that is going to help them. Even if all the heroes except for one may disappear, they will still be able to have hope, because they've built up society where they aren't over-reliant on a singular hero, but as heroes as a whole, to the point where even if many heroes fall, that they know that there's still going to be heroes to take their place and still protect them. And that's what I think is the real impact of what Lady Nagant said. Basically, that Hero Society as we know it, as the characters know it, is gone. But because it is gone, they can start anew. They can start fresh. They can build a new type of hero society, a new type of society based off superpowers that isn't hindered by people falling through the cracks and being forgotten. That they can be the helping hand to pull those people out of the darkness, so that they don't end up like the Shigarakis. They don't end up like the Twices, the Dobbies, the Lady Nagants. That they can become people that can be reformed like gentle criminals. So yeah, that's all I really want to say and really discuss about this chapter. And when it comes to this is very interesting, because like I said, I think this pretty much confirms that Hero Society, as far as we know it, as far as the students, the characters know it, is gone. So it's something that I just really wanted to talk about, and something that I really find interesting, and something that I really think that My Hero Academia does very well when it comes to its world building and its world establishment and how its world works. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about this chapter in this discussion video. What did you think? What did you think of this chapter? Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy this video? What do you think about the fact that Hero Society has crumbled? Do you think that Hero Society has crumbled? Do you think that it's going to come back to normal? Do you think that's going to be something different, or do you not think that Hero Society has crumbled at all? Leave your thoughts down in the comments down below, as well as subscribe to this YouTube channel if you like this type of content. I try to do this content very frequently when it comes to My Hero Academia. I really do enjoy My Hero Academia, really enjoy talking about it, and hopefully you enjoy listening to me talk about it and ramble and do all of that stuff. So like I said, leave a comment down below, leave a like on this video, hit that notification bell to be notified for whenever I upload, subscribe to my YouTube channel, do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I can catch you in my next video. Goodbye!